Well, good morning on this Monday morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion. I got to tell you something. You go back to last week and everybody was focused all week long on what? The Fed, of course, and Jackson Hole and virtual and all those types of things. Well, it seemed to fly by pretty nicely because Friday we started out strong. We finished strong. It was a really impressive day. You take a look at the S&P 500. Yes, another new high. You look over at the NASDAQ. Yes, another new high. So you get the idea. NASDAQ finished up 180 points to the upside on Friday. As a matter of fact, the Dow had a really nice day too. Started off strong, finished the day up 240 points. So a really, really strong close for the week. And a lot of that having to do with what people's interpretation of Chairman Powell and what he had to say. And it was a very nice spike that was holding on throughout the session. And sometimes we haven't seen that. There have been times where we've seen that final half hour or hour or so where things changed dramatically. That wasn't the case. We virtually traded just about to those highs of the session. Now, volatility index, yes, we had bounced up a little bit. We were there in the 19s. We touched the 19s, finished in the 18s. Well, on Friday, we actually finished in the 16s. So we really have ratcheted back. And of course, you price in the weekend and all the rest of that. But looks to me like after starting today, we are seeing volatility right around that same level in those 16s. So gives you a little bit of an idea of what kind of markets to expect. About a 1% move from the S&P is what that 16 is telling us right now, each and every day. And we have been seeing incredible moves each and every day. Speaking of incredible, how about the volume on Friday? 42 million, just under, but let's call it 42 million contracts trading again in the 40s, and just an amazing amount of volume. And let me just go through this real quick. So Tesla accounted for 1.4 million, Apple 1.3 million, AMD about 950,000. But here's what stuck out for me a little bit here. Vinco, BBIG. Now this one finished just below those 900,000 contracts trading in a name that most people probably have never, ever heard of. But it just shows you the power of the derivatives markets. And at times, and I'll tell you what, you want to have a little bit of fun, take a look at what the short interest looks like in this name. It'll bring you back to January and February when we were looking at GameStop, AMC, and some of those other quote unquote, we like to call it the rebel names. These rebels are absolutely on fire. They were on fire Friday. I'm going to get into more of that in just a second. Crude oil did get up and over that 69 level. It was floating right around 69, got over that. Those beta energy names absolutely rip into the upside. Occidental was up about 7%. Cabot Oil and Gas, that was one of my names on Friday when I was on the show. That was ripping to the upside, finished up about 6%. Then you look at Apache, you look at Diamondback, you look at NOV, all of those names with a really, really nice performance, up about 5% or more. Not everything was roses. We have Moderna, that was down about 4.5% on Friday. You look over at Peloton, that was down much further than where it closed, but finished off about 8.5% to the downside. We did have some earnings that absolutely did provide a nice spike. Workday, a nice move to the upside by about 9%. Then you look over at the chips, moving up about 3% across the board. We return to those highs in the semiconductor space. You look at AMD, Xilinx, Applied Materials. Those were some of the leadership names. We also had some financials moving around pretty good, but it was not nearly as interesting as what we were seeing in other parts of the marketplace for sure. So we come into today, kind of looked like a bit of a ho-hum kind of a start to the day. The Dow was looking up maybe 20 points, NASDAQ up maybe 20 points. We started to move to the upside for the NASDAQ, and that move has continued. We started down and started selling off a little bit when you take a look over at the Dow, but that's starting to eke its back way up towards flat. Might even be there by now. It was down more than 60 points. Last I looked, it was down about 20 points and looked like it was improving and looking like maybe starting to look for some green. Where we do have a lot of green, the NASDAQ ripping to the upside. Last I looked, it was up about 115 points. So a really nice performance already, first hour of trade for the NASDAQ. What's powering a lot of that? Tech on an absolute sprint to the upside. We've got some consumer discretionary absolutely starting to rip also to the upside. Semiconductors are chipping in as well. So a nice move there, but you got some weight on the markets right now, a little bit coming from the financials and some energy. So a little bit of back and forth. And again, talk about it all the time. Whenever I'm at a halftime report and I hear a lot of the things that I hear and I start to scratch my head a little bit, I continue to go back to when we get these rotations, that to me says something about a healthiness to the market. You get a nice big move out of tech, then a pause, or maybe even a slight pullback, find itself a little bit, and that type of thing. Maybe moves over to financial, maybe moves to energy, maybe moves to whatever. But I think that's been the healthy part of what we have been seeing in these markets, especially as we've gone through the earnings. Bitcoin still hanging around that 47,500, 48,000, sort of in that sort of spot. You look over at the crude oil, still kind of hovering near 69, but a little bit beneath that last I looked. And then the 10-year seemed to be planted right around this 1.3 level. And we'll see how that, obviously with financials getting a little bit of a dip today, we'll see, you know, how that starts to jive with each other, because we have been watching that very, very closely, the 10-year, for what the direction will be for those financials. That's absolutely been something. So a couple of names that stuck out for me today early on, Generac. Obviously, everybody's watching this unbelievable reports in the weather and watching New Orleans and everything up above and into Nashville and everything with Ida. Well, Generac up 4.5% today. What a shock. Seems to be one of these things that you can almost bet on that each and every time we see these major hurricanes. And certainly this is another opportunity to see this name that oftentimes is looked past, but is very, very something that everybody would like to have at all times, certainly. And we, of course, have it at our house. We moved here a few years ago. Everybody's telling me I don't need one. Well, we got one anyway, and it's been very, very good, something that's been great. Now, where is a little bit of pressure? I'm looking at these Chinese names. I look at NetEase, I look at JD, I look at PDD, all of them with a little bit of pressure to the downside. NetEase certainly stands out the most. When I looked, it was down about 7%. So getting back to just for 1 second, some of the craziness that we are seeing in these rebel stocks, BBIG, that's Vinco Ventures. Now, this is a name that, like I said, you probably hardly ever heard of. When I look at where it stands right now and what we're seeing for some of the option paper, it was trading number 2 today for equity volumes early on. Now, that was in the early 45 minutes of the day or so before I started to come on here. So really interesting to see all of the volume that's coming into that name. And it's not just that name. Support, SPRT, is another one. That's not in the top 10, but it is top 12 or so, something like that for volume. And another big day there as well. So we're seeing this more and more, where we're seeing some of these rebel names that are coming in. Take a look at short interest. When you look at short interest, that gives you a little bit of the hints for why we are seeing some of this, just like we were back in January and February, and some of the moves. These have been pretty extraordinary moves as well. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, doesn't mean any of that. But we are certainly seeing a lot of activity and a lot of eyes focused on specific names that do have this very high short interest. Be wary. Be disciplined, be all those things. Very, very important. I got 2 unusuals for you, and then one quick note, and then we're out of here. So GM stands out big time. Stock was trading right around 49.30. We had the September 3rd. Yes, we're keeping it very short term like we have been. September 3rd, 11,000 of these calls. These are the September 3rd 50 calls, just out of the money, going for 37 cents up to about 50 cents for these options, with the price of the stock trading right around 49.30. Next, NVDA. We've had this one before. It has produced before. We'll see if that happens again. Stock was trading 227.80, and we had a buyer of 22,000 of the September 3rd. Yep, that's coming up really fast on us. September 3rd, 230 calls. Now, those were a little more expensive. We're talking about $2.60 up to about $3.80. Again, the stock was trading around 22.7 or 227.80 at the time of when we'd seen these options that were hitting. Folks, really excited about October 1st, October 2nd. Again, that's when Market Rebellion ascends and we drop down into Las Vegas. We're really excited about that. We'll be at the Aria. They continue to expand a little bit and trying to do their very best to make everything great for us at Market Rebellion. We're excited about that. They've expanded things. So the bronze tickets are available, but you've got to call the number if you want that. It's going to be really exciting. We always get excited about this. And I'll tell you, after having to do it virtually last year, like everybody else, be nice to get up in person once again. And we're really looking forward to that. That is going to be October 1st, October 2nd. Those bronze tickets are going to be available if you call the number that you're seeing on the screen. Everybody have a great day of trading. Knowledge is king. Understand the derivatives markets. It gives you great leverage, but you've got to have the understanding and the education to understand exactly what all goes into what I'm talking about each and every day when we're talking about these derivative markets. Have a great day at trading.